to introduce you again to Carlos Camarena, the legendary tequilero, producing Tequila Tacuatillo, Tequila Ocho, and El Tesoro. And we are here at the new, or maybe not so new, but still kind of new, Ocho Distillery. And we're going to have another chat with Carlos because the last chat we had was amazing, and I think there's a lot that we can learn from him. Uh, and for today's topic, we're going to talk about a little bit about authentic tequila, traditional tequila, what makes a traditional tequila, according to Carlos, and a little bit about Tequila Ocho and El Tesoro, because in the last interview we were talking a little bit more about Tapatio, and we'd really like to learn more about the other brands that you manage, even though it's not part of the family, like you're not the owner, but I tasted them last week, and they're still amazing. And to me, this is something really, really unique that the way that you handle everything around the production. I still remember from the last interview, there is one word that kind of explains everything that you do, which is quality.
Quality.
Right? Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And the other thing that I really like is the way you describe Tequila Tapatio on your website. Is basically it's a great it's the best example of Los Altos tequila, and if you don't like it, you may as well stop drinking tequila. Here to elaborate that a little bit for us.
Yeah, to me, going step by step, you were mentioning something about producing tequila traditional way or artisanal, and to me, that is very important nowadays. I mean, most of the industry, in order to produce more and to gain more markets, they have changed their processes, and tequila has becoming more and more industrial. So me being a fifth generation agave grower and tequila producer, we have tried to remain loyal to our roots, which is taking more time, making things probably slowly, less efficiently, but with better quality, controlling every single aspect of production. And to me, it makes a lot of sense because also in the industry, most of the companies will buy agave from the open market. I am an agronomist. I grow the agave that we use. Therefore, after waiting up to 7 years for that agave to reach full maturity, the question is, should we really hurry things up in order to save a few days after waiting 7 years? It doesn't make any sense. So to me, traditional tequila begins with the concept of only using fully mature agave. And to me also, that is very simple. If you have first quality agave, then you have a chance to produce first quality tequila. But if there's a shortage, if you're depending on what's available in the open market, and if you end up buying second quality or third quality agave, the question is, can you really produce first quality with that second quality raw material? And the answer is no. So to me, everything begins in the field with the agave because agave and water are the only two raw materials we have. So we depend on the quality of the agave as we cannot control the quality of the water itself. So to me, that is the first and very important step. And then traditional or artisanal tequila production, to me, it is also, again, a slow cooking of the agave to gently convert the starch into sugar that we can ferment and distill. Uh, so it takes more time than using an autoclave or a diffuser, of course, very, very modern technology. But at the same time, you are ripping off some of the soul of the agave plant itself. And to me, it is allowing the agave to tell us a story of life. The agave will tell us where it was grown, if it was in the valley, if it was in the highlands of Jalisco, what it was, the quality, the conditions that the agave had. Everything gets expressed on a glass of tequila blanco. So the tequila blanco is all about the life story of an agave plant. And to me, it is very important to preserve that instead of using very modern techniques. After cooking the agave, then we squeeze the juice and we have an open fermentation in wooden vats with wild yeast. The yeast comes with the agave or in the agave from the fields. So it is a yeast that it was already present in the agave. And therefore, what we do here is to ferment using that same wild yeast. The moment that we are cooking the agave because of the temperature, that yeast will die because of the temperature. But fortunately, there's more agave coming every day to the distillery. So the distillery is completely impregnated on these microorganisms that at the moment that we are using an open fermentation tank, those microorganisms will come and jump in saying, hey, there's food for us. There's sugar here, so let's go eat. And they will convert that sugar into alcohol. That to us, it is what we are looking for in tequila. It is the alcohol, but also it is the aromas and flavors that wild yeast will produce. So instead of trying to modify or to be more efficient on how to produce tequila, we actually just allowed Mother Nature to do its own job without trying to manipulate too much. It is just, okay, gently converting the starch into sugar, then getting that juice, and leaving Mother Nature to do its job by bringing in those, I would say, wild yeast and allow it to ferment. And after fermentation, which, by the way, it is a very, very complex process, one of the main reasons why you can sip and consume tequila, mezcal, any agave spirit neat coming from the still, it is because of what is happening in fermentation. When you are fermenting, let's say, grains for producing whiskey or grapes for producing brandy, you can have up to 200, 250 different chemical compounds formed during fermentation. With a wild yeast and a very fully mature agave and a natural fermentation process, we can have up to 450 different chemical compounds. What are those chemical compounds? Well, alcohol, but also some other types of alcohol that we disregard at the moment of distilling because our body cannot process those. But also what we have is chemical compounds that are responsible of aromas and flavors mainly. So the complexity of what's happening on fermentation makes the tequila coming out of the still to have a lot of aroma and a lot of flavor. So we could use the barrels, the oak, to age that product if we want to, but it is not mandatory as it is in the case of whiskey or brandy. They need the oak. We don't need the oak. We have the Blanco being, again, a story of what the agave has to transmit. Then after that process of fermentation ends, we have a double distillation process in very small copper pot stills. In the case of Ocho, it's first stainless and then copper pot stills, just to refine what happened in fermentation, getting rid of the undesirable elements or congeners that were produced in fermentation, and selecting which are the ones that we want them to become part of the tequila. So to me, that is a traditional way of producing tequila, is taking care of every single aspect and try to go with the Mother Nature, facilitate things to Mother Nature to do its job instead of trying to manipulate everything. So at the end of that process, you cannot really recognize the agave anymore, and you have to end up adding some additives or some aroma or flavors or coloring or different things in order to make it appealing to the consumer. To me, that is not the way of doing it. So respecting what the agave has to offer, to me, that is the way of produce real traditional tequila made by hand and an artisanal product. So that was the first comment I got from you. It was what it is about producing on artisanal way. And in my family, as I was saying, we have 5 generations doing this. The first distillery that we had in my family, my ancestors, of course, it was kind of like an agave moonshine in the area. They brought the blue agave into the highlands. The agave is not native from this area. And they were producing probably 2 or 3 months a year on the dry season when they had nothing else to do. And they used to sell everything locally with no name, with no brands. So that's why I say it was kind of like a moonshine, because everything was consumed in the cantinas in the area, but without a proper name. Unfortunately, that original distillery was destroyed during Mexican Revolution in the 1910s. And in the 1920s, then we had the Cristeros War. And in those two events, the distillery got abandoned and eventually came crashing down because it was built of adobe. So my grandfather in 1937 decided to build another distillery, and everything had to do with the agave. Actually, the reason why he built this distillery is because he kept on being an agave grower. He used to have contracts to supply agave to the big companies in the tequila area at that time. and there was a surplus of agave. He couldn't find market for his agave, so he decided to do what his grandfather did already, that it was convert the agave into tequila. It was the only way that he could save his crop. The agave would rotten in the field, would get spoiled, but already converted into tequila, it could stay there for years. And he used to say, if I may sell it, fine. Otherwise, just give me time and I will drink it all. So that was the philosophy.
And in your grandfather's time, basically, there were no question how tequila should be made, right? There was only one type of tequila, right? The traditional way.
That is correct.
Like that,
That is
right?
correct. Yeah, in the last 50, 60 years, that has changed. Again, modernization came into the tequila production, and it became industrial. And fortunately, there's still a few distilleries that keeps on producing the traditional way, and we are honored to do that. So he started with the Tapatio brand, and then that's my grandfather's brand. Then my father created El Tesoro brand in the 1989, if I remember correctly, and still completely traditional, using the tajona to squeeze, which is a stone wheel on a stone pit to squeeze gently the juice of the agave plant, and we keep on using that still nowadays for El Tesoro. So it's a very, very traditional way of producing tequila. And then I would say 15 years ago, in 2007, together with my partner and friend Tomas Estes, we decided to go another step. And what was that another step? And that's the creation of the Tequila Ocho brand. Uh, Tapatio and for El Tesoro, we usually make blends in order to be consistent, so the consumer doesn't really notice a difference. Even if, to me, consistency means consistency in quality, by knowing that every time there will be some change. As the product is not manipulated, it is an artisanal product. Therefore, every time there will be slightly different from the previous batch. But
It's great that you mentioned the story. I think a lot of consumers are a little bit kind of, they don't get it. And I'd like you to please explain. So, like, the story to me personally is like you have a certain set of processes that you use, you have a certain field of agave, you have a certain type of water, right? And then all of that is going to be in this glass, and you can taste it and kind of verify, right? Like, this is the story, and then in your glass, that's the tequila that have the background or the story. But nowadays, unfortunately, you have a lot of brands. They have these, descriptions that this is how we make the tequila, and I drink their tequila, and I'm like, I don't get it. Like, this story that you're telling me is not what I taste in the tequila.
it doesn't get reflected on the
Exactly,
tequila.
right?
And
So,
in our case, even as you mentioned, El Tesoro is not our brand anymore, because eventually we sold that brand to Beam. We used to be partners, but we sold the brand. And I always think that we are not, I would say, creators of brands. We are tequila producers. We really care not that much on owning the brand, but actually owning the process, owning the tequila, producing the tequila. So even if Tesoro changed ownership, Tesoro keeps on being produced the same way that my father did uh, back in the day. So that hasn't changed. And it is the same with Ocho. I was telling you the story. And so by speaking with Tomas, I was saying how every time we had to make some fine tuning inside the distillery, because the agave was reacting differently. So we said, why don't we produce a tequila that would actually showcase that terroir, that origin of the agave plant itself, and allow the agave to tell us his own story of life, where it was grown, what was surrounding the agave, what was influencing the agave on its life cycle. In this case, the fertility of the soil, the minerality of the soil, the ambience itself, the microclimate, and allow the agave to tell us the story. So we said, okay, first we need to establish a method, a way of producing tequila. So at La Alteña, by switching little things, by fermenting with fibers, without fibers, by squeezing the juice with the Tahona stone wheel, or with a roller mill, by distilling only in copper or only stainless steel, or a combination of both, we ended up with a dozen different ways of producing tequila. So we said, okay, let's make a blind taste and let's see which is the one we like the most. At the end, we both agreed that the one we liked the most it was the sample number 8. Therefore, the name Ocho, 8, because that's the one that we said this is the one that it is really reflecting what the agave is all about.
It's great you mentioned this story because when I try to reflect on that, this is basically how, like, the proper way to design the process for an authentic tequila, right? You make certain changes to your process, and then you're gonna figure, oh, okay, this is kind of the right way. This tastes better. This will give me more of the flavor profile I'm looking for. Versus what's happening now these days that people just go into like the factory of a celebrity or something, and you have these free tequilas and you don't have any idea how they're produced. And like, oh, this is my favorite. I'm like, okay, well, how much do you want, right? And then the distillery can just literally make it for anyone. I mean, anyone can literally make tequila these days. We actually wrote an article as well, and in our opinion, the celebrities are not quite, necessarily like the Hollywood celebrities. I mean, let's say it was like a basketball game. Like I would hire some of the best basketball players, right? And if it's a tequila game, I would probably hire the best tequileros. And I don't know why the Hollywood stars are kind of, I mean, they make great movies because that's their, field of, like they've been working decades for getting that practice. But you and your family's been in the business for, I mean, just for over 100 years, right?
Yes. If it's La Alteña, which is the distillery which is actually up and running, it's 85 years.
Yeah.
But if we take into consideration the original distillery, we have 140 years on doing this, 5 generations. So we start thinking that we may know how to do things after 140 years of experimenting different
And do
things.
you feel a certain pressure, by the way, in a sense? Like, because you do have your ancestry, right? You've always been making amazing tequila. I mean, for example, I, as a consumer, I expect when I open the Tequila Ocho or Tapatio or El Tesoro that it's going to be of top quality. Do you feel any sort of pressure? Like, oh, you really have to do it like 100% or 120% all the time?
No, I mean, the pressure usually comes by ourselves.
Ah,
We are perfectionists. We like to do things right from the beginning. Uh, I remember something that my father told me once when I asked him, okay, what is the secret to produce the best possible tequila? His answer was not that nice at the beginning because he told me, well, first of all, you have to be very selfish. And I said, what do you mean by being selfish? What that has to do with making quality tequila? He said, yes, please, forget about the market, forget about the money, forget about the recognition. Do it for yourself. Do it right from the beginning as if you could drink it all, and therefore you're not compromising your own health by doing something which is not right. If you do it that way, the name will come, the recognition will come, the reputation, the money will come, but they will come as a consequence of doing things right, not as the main goal. So now you see, again, everybody tries to jump into the tequila train because tequila is popular. Everybody wants to have their own brand, but they are usually focused the other direction, making money. And therefore, they are willing to sacrifice and cut corners all around and sacrifice quality in order to get mass production because me, with my name, I can sell it very easily, and who cares what's inside the bottle? So that is, I would say, that makes the difference. But the pressure always is on our side saying we have already built a reputation after this, let's say, 85 years, and it is very hard to build a reputation, and it is very easy to destroy it. One split second, one bad decision, and you can destroy everything that was behind it. And therefore, we have to be very careful on how we do things. So again, even if El Tesoro is not our brand anymore, we sold Ocho. We keep on producing Ocho here at the new facility, and we keep on doing it exactly the same way because my philosophy is I want to grow agave, I want to produce tequila from the highest possible quality. Who cares at the end of the day who is the owner of the brand? My business is not selling brands. My business is producing and selling tequila. So let's keep on doing it this way because if by some reason we sold those brands, it's because they already had a reputation and there was people or companies interested in acquiring that. And we decided to sell them for another reason. That meant a little more money in our pocket to grow our facilities and to expand our business and to keep on producing more tequila with the same level of quality, So again, the money was not just to get it in the bank or to have a fancy car. The money was not the destination or what we wanted to do. The money was only okay, it's a tool to keep on doing what I'm doing, but maybe bigger, better, not faster, better. Keep on giving this beautiful tequila liquid to the world. So that was the main thing. So if your question is, have you changed your way of doing things now that you do not own the brand? No, we haven't, because the philosophy keeps on being there. We are tequila producers, not brand creators.
Yeah. It's wonderful actually because in a sense, don't correct me if I'm wrong, you kind of have this work kind of delegation, right? You produce tequila, they basically help you with distribution and sales, which for you it's actually not easy anyways because you either focus on production usually or you focus on the sales part, right? And this way you can work together with the brands and you already have your name, the brands actually are working with you because they want Carlos Camarena and your mentality, they want your quality assurance in a sense, right? They know that you're not gonna create a terrible match because it's gonna be just like a split second, your name can be destroyed. And for big brands, it's not the same, like they can make a lot of bad decisions and people are just gonna keep buying those. And
If you
yeah,
invest enough in marketing, yeah,
exactly.
because I mean, there's people who knows and appreciates good tequila and knows about it, but the massive market really doesn't really have that so clear, and therefore they see a famous name promoting a brand and we say, oh, this is the one I want, and regardless of what's inside, because I would say the massive market or the mass market doesn't really still understand so much about what good tequila is. We're getting there because the tequila that is growing, usually it is the super premium category. It is the 100% agave, and it is getting there, but it's not yet there. Still, the mass market, it is consuming tequilas not so well produced, but someday.
We're working on it actually. It's just so this interview actually is part of that. So we share the stories of actually real people and people who've been in the industry. Because to me personally, like your work is like magic and kind of like the Bible in a sense, because I've never. I don't have that lineage of tequila. I'm from Hungary, like, so I'm actually a lucky person to be here and work for the tequila industry. I'm honored in that sense, right? But a lot of people, they just think that they know their stuff, and they start talking about it, and sometimes I'm like, well, if I ask Carlos Camarena, would you say this, or would you be like, well, like, this is not quite the right thing? And I really think, I appreciate you taking your time with us, because this is really what consumers need. As we teach people, we show, like, your videos and videos of other producers, they're like, now I know the story, and they can relate to what you are doing here. And it's really great to see your exploration because first we talked with Salsa, for example, and he also gave this actually like describing new things, and it's so interesting. A lot of consumers they just don't understand why things are happening. And it's great that you just explained this also. And before we go on, let's say a cheers next.
Yes.
Let's just try. So we're doing Tequila Ocho. And this is an interesting thing as well for people who like to just get involved in your brands. Basically, what would you say?
To talk about it. Then you can sip it neat. I mean, I'm a little, I would say, purist, so I prefer my tequila neat, room temperature, and usually tend to go to the blancos. I really appreciate reposado, añejo, extra añejo, the nuances that the oak will provide, but I always come back to the root. I always come back to blanco. But again, you want to use it on a margarita or on a different cocktail. You want to drink it on the rocks. You want to drink whatever. The way that it pleases you the most, because every person is different, every consumer is different. We have different preferences, and therefore, drink it the way you like, as long as you use your five senses. You need your eyes to see the color, to see the viscosity, to see and the viscosity will tell us about the maturity of the agave. So you need your eyes. Of course, you need to touch it to see if it's warm, if it's cold, how it is. You use your nose to get the aromas. You will use your palate to get the flavors. So when do you use your ears? By being in company with someone talking about it, or at least saying salud.
Salud.
That noise. Then you are using your five senses. Then you are really enjoying tequila. That's the way of doing it.
I like your the way you said it. And one thing I really remember and stands out of our last interview, which I also use as an expression to kind of define traditional tequila, which you mentioned you like to drink tequila with a character. So for people who may not even know like a traditional tequila, how would you define that?
Well, character is not easy to define, but I would say it is a lot of aromas, flavors, a nice body, a persistence on your back palate, so a tequila that will last long in your palate. So that means that it was very well done. If it's very neutral, if it's very smooth, as the people used to say now, oh, this is very smooth, but it is completely flat. You drink it, it was smooth in your nose, maybe some additive added there to make it sweet, because consumers love sweets. And then you swallow it, and it's gone. There's nothing left. So therefore, that has no character. It is boring. I want this to keep on telling me something from the back palate. After I had that sip, it keeps on telling me something in my palate, in my throat. I keep on feeling that tequila. So to me, that means to have character, because it will last there, and it is showing you all of this very wide range of aromas, flavors, and remains in your tongue. So that, to me, it means to have character. Nothing too boring, flat. You sip it and, oh, it was very, very smooth. Yeah, and it's gone, and nothing.
Yeah.
So, no, I like it this way. And by the way, one thing that I don't really like is the use of lime and salt. I mean, everybody can enjoy it as they want. But the use of lime, you adorn your palate, and therefore, after some lime, you can drink some gasoline, and you won't even notice. I mean, because your palate doesn't notice. So I am usually not very happy with the use of lime and salt. Again, every consumer is different. If you enjoy it that way, that's okay for you. I'm a little bit purist, and I like to know the story of the agave plant expressed by the plant itself in terms of aromas and flavors, character, and remaining here in my back palate. To me, that's the story I want to hear.
That's what I mean. Then I think let's just explain to people in a sense, like for example, for a Blanco tequila, usually it shouldn't be necessarily sweet. I mean, I sometimes hear producers saying like, oh, our agave had like amazing amount of like sugar content, and that's why we have like a sweet tequila. But like, correct me if I'm wrong, but with the distillation and even the fermentation will probably just create, like, there's a very little residual sugar from there, usually there is. And then for the distillation, there really shouldn't be a lot of sweetness remaining, right? So I don't know really how they can...
That is correct. I mean, the sugar will be converted into ethanol. So there's always a little bit of remaining sugar, but usually not too much, so not to make a tequila sweet. Sometimes, and that is not because the agave was higher or lower, if you use a tahona, like in our case for El Tesoro and for Tapatio, using tahona and fermenting with the fibers and the pulp and the fibers will tend to float on the fermentation tank. And therefore the fermentation is incomplete. We have a lot of residual sugar in that pulp. Then we bring it into the still with that there, and then we are able to capture some of the sweetness, some of the sugar from the agave. The one that was not converted into alcohol, we can bring it into the glass. But in order to really have a sweet tequila, you need that kind of process. If it's an industrial made tequila and it is sweet, it is not natural. It is additives added to it, so to make it feel sweeter, smoother, whatever you want to name it.
It's
but it is not natural.
Because then it's going to be the sweetness and not much else.
Yes.
Right? Or maybe some vanilla, or I don't know what the guys use these days. But what you're trying to say is that you really should have a range, a broad variety of aromas as well that you enjoy, right?
Yes, but usually you're talking about floral aromas, fruity aromas, I mean some citrusy, and then you talk about minerality, and then you talk about some spices there, black pepper, white pepper. So where's the sugar? Usually you're not talking, oh, it is very sweet. It means that your process was very, very ineffective because you were not converting the sugar into alcohol. So you were completely inefficient, or you're just simply adding something sweet to make it more palatable for the general consumer.
That's what I mean. So in other words, basically, a traditional tequila obviously is additive free in a sense, but is it the other way around? So just because a tequila is additive free, it's already can be considered to be traditional?
No, because you can produce a very industrial tequila without using additives. So it's additive free, but at the same time it's not traditional because you were using very modern technology to do it. So one thing is not related to the other. If you combine both things, additive free and traditional processes, then you have a winner. But one doesn't mean that the other it is part of that. No.
Thanks for explaining, because I think there's a lot of confusion for a lot of people, and I agree with you actually. And not just that, I've seen a lot of people even letting us into the distillery and like, hey, we did the fermentation in one day, and I'm like, well, is it enough? And of course they can still say technically that the parameters is like, well, it's a traditional method, you know what I mean? And they have these double coils like coming off the stills, so they have a huge pressure and huge temperature, like they do a fast distillation.
And a lot of nutrients for the yeast and nitrogen sources and accelerators and enzymes and different chemical compounds in order to accelerate the process so you can make it in 24 hours.
Yep.
Then you are manipulating the whole process and you are adding things. In some cases they are adding even some acids, and I usually say, you know what, I don't know why, but I don't really enjoy sulfuric acid on my tequila. No, thank you. So again, it is very modern.
Fermentation, you're just letting everything down by nature. So you don't add like anything like OH or like acid, or the pH is what it is. You don't add nutrition, nothing, right? It's just let the nature do it.
Let the mother nature do it, her own job. She knows better. She has been there for millions of years before we were here, so she knows better how to do things.
Probably so, and I think there's when we had the last chat, you literally said that if something's not broken, why fix it? Right?
Exactly.
So your grandfather's days, these things weren't even available, right?
No, there was no such a thing as commercial yeast, and of course, no. Well, at the distillery for the first probably 50 years, we had no electricity there, no way to pump things and to use machinery or to use. Everything was made by hand. Now we have electricity, mostly for lights, a few pumps, a few things, but mostly everything is done by hand. It is going with the flow, going with Mother Nature instead of trying to manipulate everything. So to us, that is the way of doing things, and that's the traditional way of doing things, is do not manipulate the agave. Let the agave to tell you its own story.
So traditional way, let's summarize. So the story is important, right? So you have to be able to capture whatever you're doing in your glass. So it's not just like, oh, I was using a fermentation tank, open fermentation. You can do a lot of things, but in your opinion, like if you even manipulate fermentation, that's probably not traditional, right? Or
Yes.
very good. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So that's the story. Yeah, well, and you know, I kind of expect it has to be additive free, but not necessarily the other way around. It has to have a character. Anything else I missed?
No, I mean,
This is it?
traditional, fully mature agave,
Fully
very
mature
important,
agave.
fully mature agave.
agave.
Yes, the quality of your raw material, we were missing that. And then just a slow cooking, gentle, convert the starch into sugar, but gently without converting the sugar into caramel. With a lot of heat and pressure, you get some of the sugar caramelized, and caramel doesn't taste like sugar, doesn't behave like sugar. So it's take your time, do it slowly. For a modern distillery, they can, from the moment they receive the agave to the moment they are distilling tequila, they may spend 5 days. For a traditional distillery like us, it can take up to 2 weeks. So how inefficient. We are wasting a lot of time. After waiting 7 years for the agave to reach maturity, spending another 7, 8, 9 days doesn't make a difference in terms of time for us. It does make a difference on the way you are producing, on the quality of your final product. That makes a difference.
Thank you so much, Carlos, for taking your time with me.
It's always a pleasure. As I say, we love what we do. We enjoy producing tequila, but the second thing we enjoy the most is talking about it. So thank you for allowing me to tell some of these crazy ideas from my mind and my own personal perception. Again, do not take everything for granted. Take it with a little piece of salt, because that is just my personal point of view, which might differ from other people's personal point of view. And who am I to say who's right and who's wrong? Let the consumer, at the end of the day, to be the judge of what is right and what is wrong.
Thanks so much.
Cheers for that.
Thank you for inspiring
Thank you.
all of us.